Hi, welcome to our November Honoring Women of One to One. This is for November 2022. And today we have Michelle Stoltz with us. And Michelle has been started off as a client with One to One in 2014. She became a coach for One to One in 2015. And she's joining Katie Albert and I'm Kristen Lemke today we want to talk with her about her life, why she's so fantastic, and as we've called her, our work wife. We've the three of us have created, I think, an amazing bond as working partners as well. So we're really excited to talk to Michelle about her journey as a caregiver, how she came to one, and how she continued to stay on with us even though we're crazy. It's so fun. So Michelle, let's start by, I want to go back to kind of the beginning. Katie and I were talking about this earlier. And um, even though you came to us as a caregiver, let's go back further and talk about where were you born, how growing
Yeah.
up, those kind of things, and who you thought you were going to be.
Oh, that's a good place. So let's see. I am a Florida native, born in Lakeland, and grew up on the east coast of Florida, and then moved over to the west coast, which is by far the favorite coast, the Gulf Coast. And so I went to college with the intention of being a school teacher. And in that process, I met my husband. Well, we met in high school, but we dated, and he left for the military, and I did the college thing. And we were together the whole time, except not physically, and decided in 2004, once I was done with my degree program, that we would get married. And he was military police in the beginning, in his service in the Army. And so together we were going to be the cop and the teacher, and that was going to be our life path, except it wasn't. Becoming a caregiver was not part of my plan. However, I have worked really hard to embrace it and identify as a caregiver. And through that process of embracing and accepting my journey, one to one was a big part of that. And One to One found me. I was actually at a caregiver retreat in 2013 or 2014. And one of the other caregivers pulled me aside and said, "Do you think that you'd be interested in this? I've just really enjoyed watching you throughout this week, and I think you'd be a really good fit for this organization. And they provide pro bono life coaching for women and caregivers specifically." And I was like, "Oh, maybe," because I was at a place in my life where I was kind of feeling stagnant. I had done the counseling thing. I had, worked with my husband on getting medication, working through the VA challenges, all of that good stuff. And so I was ready to turn the corner and focus on me for a while, because I really felt like we were at an okay place. There was still work to be done, but I felt like I needed more, because I had left my job teaching because it was not sustainable as a caregiver and providing care for him. And then we ended up having a son in 2009. And so learning to become a family unit with challenges like post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injuries, autoimmune disorders that were debilitating, all of that combined really just put my life on hold, as I knew it. So I needed to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. I think I'm still figuring that out. I think we all figure that out, or it's all part of our journey as we go along. But so I applied to become a caregiver coachee, I guess, or client, and just jumped right in. I was matched with my coach, and we started the process. And right away, I just felt like, wow, this is going to be helpful. This is part of what my future is going to be. Just with the questions that my coach was asking me, which I had Terry as my coach, and she's just such a delight and life-changing. But just through that process, I really began to discover that, one, taking time for myself was critical. So I had an hour of coaching, and I was still doing counseling at the same time. So I had an hour of coaching and an hour of counseling for myself each week. And so that was my me time. And so that me time kind of manifested into, okay, I can take bigger chunks of me time. And so I decided that I was going to change my career path and try and find something that would fit into our needs of me being at home, so that I can be a support system for my husband while he's mostly independent. There's still a lot of days that are challenging. And we're 12 years in. So, it's a time, it's a time consuming process. And so I decided to pursue coaching as a career. And it was something that I could do from home. The school I could do from home. I could create my business and work it from home, which was perfect, and still bring in income to assist, with my family needs. So that was how I became a coach, was through the coaching process, because I just really loved how the whole process evolved, just becoming a bigger part of, or being able to see a bigger vision, because I was kind of at that place. Like I said, I was stagnant, I was stuck, I was feeling like I don't know what there is to do. And so that possibilities thinking, and then just really pushing myself out of my comfort zone was a big thing. So I started my own life coaching practice, and I've been doing that since 2015. And because of the one-to-one being so important in my life, I wanted to go back and give back to the organization. So I became a volunteer coach with the organization, and then quickly jumped on the leadership team, as you both know, and volunteered with the leadership team and helped bring the organization forward. And so here I am. Here I am
You
back
make it
in
sound
it.
so easy. We know it wasn't, but
It was not easy. It was a long road. It was, I say all of that and like it happened overnight, but it was, many years of in process.
yeah. One of the things I've come to, I remember the first moment I met you, and I remember the first time I heard your, another version of that journey, not starting with childhood,
Right.
but with your caregiving journey. And I know how moved everybody was. And I think that one of the things that always, that of course I think about with you is, if I were to boil it down to one word, sometimes I think it's resilience, but I think it's so much more. And I kind of want to get into how you got to be that way, because I think of you as, you said possibilities thinking. I think that's probably the kernel, but I think there's like I was joking the other day to somebody. I was fighting with something in WordPress, and I was thinking to myself, what would Michelle do? And it's like all of that sort of my shorthand for figuring it out, and there's a swear word in the middle of that that I've excluded, but it really is, you figure it out. And I'm so curious to know, like, what, what was that always you? When did that come in? How, is there like an inner mantra? How do you channel that patience? I don't know if it's patience. Like, what is it inside you that helps you get through these really hard inflection points?
Yeah, so I'm type A minus personality. so I've always been a go-getter. It's just part of who I am. And, it took me a while once I was thrusted into this role of caregiving. So I guess let me go backwards. So it was pretty much thrusted into it. My husband and I were both working actually I was a stay-at-home mom back then with our infant son, and my husband was the breadwinner. And all of a sudden his post-traumatic stress just became too much with his line of work as a deputy sheriff. And it was overwhelming for our family. So we switched roles fairly quickly. And so then I was thrusted back into working. And so I feel like I'm just tenacious and always am figuring out a way to move forward, because I'm just not a quitter. I don't quit very easily. And so I think that tenacity is really what has helped me build resilience. I haven't really had a need to be resilient, I don't think, in my life. And so this was a big part of my life that I needed to develop that skill, or coping mechanisms, or however you want to call it. But I really do think that it has become so much a part of who I am now. And I thrive in the areas of helping other people become like that, because quitting is not really an option. So, especially when it comes to our veterans, and I'm not saying that everybody who's married to a veteran should put up with X, Y, or Z. That's not what I'm saying. However, with my personal circumstances, I was not willing to throw in the towel so easily. So we worked really, really hard and developed a deeper relationship with each other through this whole process of becoming who we are now, the version of who we are now. So yeah, because my husband got out in 2006 off of active duty. He was medically separated in 2012 from the National Guard. So this has been an ongoing process for the last 10 years for sure, but really for the last, gosh, I guess that would be 18 years. Oh my gosh, that's a long time. So yeah, it's been a long journey of becoming resilient. I think that's a good word.
Yeah.
And I think I had told Katie this story before, but wanted to share it with you because I think it really talks about that resiliency. Is, we had our coaching retreat for one-to-one in Colorado in 2019, and Michelle and I were roommates, and there's all this going on. We're trying to keep things flowing and behind the scenes, and I wake up in the night and I hear you talking, and you're on the phone with Cohen, your son, and you have your laptop. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized as I was laying there that Matt was having one of his severe migraines and needed to go to the emergency room. And I was so impressed with, you were calm, and you're talking to Cohen, who's stepping in, in your place and being a caregiver, but he knew exactly what to do, who to call. And you walked him through, a few more steps, and that resilience and ability to stay calm. Do you feel like, is that something that came out of this, or do you feel like you've always had that?
So I love when people say that I'm calm, because internally I don't feel calm, but obviously I've got a good handle on it. But I think it really has developed, because raising kids, becoming a little crazy in a scary situation is not helpful. So being calm, I think, is key. And we can process better when we're calm. So I really do work through the steps, and he's watched us handle his dad and has really become the second caregiver for me. So it is nice he's 13 now, so he's grown up with this migraine situation, physical pain, mood swings, the whole 9 yards. And so he's really adapted and become resilient himself. And he knew exactly what to do and called the right people, because he can't drive, obviously. So, and it worked itself out. But yeah, I had forgotten that happens. Unfortunately, that's part of our life still, and it will probably always be part of our life. But yeah, I think all of that has really played into the resiliency factor. That, and also educating ourselves on what we're dealing with. I mean, that's probably the biggest turning point in my journey for caregiving, is education. Because in the beginning, I was not empathetic to my husband. I didn't understand what he was dealing with. I really didn't think it was as bad as it was, because he's a man and he's really strong, and he's just so stoic. And so it's hard to see through that. And he had a lot of guards up, because he was dealing with a lot of mental health issues that were not being taken care of. So there were a lot of walls that I had to break down, and that we had to break down together. And I think through that process, it only made us closer. And now, so many years later, I'm so grateful to be able to look back at our story and say, oh, okay, this is really what helped define who we are as individuals and as a family unit and as a couple, because it would have just been easier to maybe not easier, but an option could have been just to walk away from it all and choose the easier path. of not having to fight the systems and all the time it takes to figure out medication combinations and different therapies and all of that. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of possibilities thinking, of thinking outside the box. And I don't think without coaching, I would have as developed skills, or it wouldn't have come as quickly, I don't think, for me, because it really did. It's a different approach. Like, we're not taught to think like clients of coaches. We just aren't. We aren't, we're, I feel like as a society, we just function, a lot of us just function day-to-day routine, mundane tasks, and it's easy to get stuck in the rut. And so with possibilities thinking, it's easy to think, okay, yeah, that's what they're telling me, but there's got to be something else. And so knowing that there's got to be something else, and then figuring out what that something else is it's a process, but it's powerful.
Yeah, I know that we all know what possibilities thinking is, but for anyone
Right.
who doesn't know, like, is there a quick trick that a key question that you ask yourself, or something like a gear you kick into that like I know a lot of what we haven't even covered is that you moved, that your living environment is also now designed to you made all these other changes. It's not just when you walk into the VA, what do? It's all these other things you're doing to kind of tee up the environment to support Matt and support Cohen and yourself, right?
Yeah, so we made a lot of significant changes. We were living in Colorado when all of this was happening. We didn't have family support, which was a big challenge with raising a child. We had amazing neighbors who became family, and we're still close to, that really stepped in. Being in a military community, I miss that. I miss the connections that are formed so deeply and so quickly. But family has a different stance on things. And so we moved from Colorado to Florida, where we live now. We moved from a neighborhood that was right, cookie cutter neighborhood, houses right on top of one another, which was not conducive for my husband's just stress and paranoia at sometimes. So moving to 5 acres in the middle of everywhere and nowhere at the same time in Florida. And we're 30 minutes from my family and his. Being high school sweethearts, our families are still local to this area. And so it was the necessary choice. It wasn't an easy choice, but looking back now, it's exactly where we needed to be, setting up things like having more space, having a less military populated area to provide better care for veterans. So in Colorado, there's 5 military bases. The VAs were inundated with retirees and active military that were transitioning, what have you. And so moving here, the VA system has been incredible. And then through, obviously, it's not an easy process. It's a government entity, so it's got a lot of red tape. But so many years into the process, I've learned how to navigate it and ask those questions. Okay, well, what else could there be? What are the options that I have? I think just asking that question, what are the options? That's the possibilities thinking. What are the options? Even if they're crazy and radical, it's okay. Like it's an option. It may not be viable, but throw it out there and then choose the best adventure.
So is there a specific mantra that you use? Is there words, anything that you use to kind of kick yourself into gear when you're finding yourself in one of those positions?
Yeah, so there's several different, it just depends on the day, but yeah, I have become really good at recognizing knowing my signs of stress, and before I get to that breaking point. So prior to coaching, prior to counseling, prior to all the things, I would just, go from one extreme to the next because I didn't know how to regulate. I didn't even know what my warning signs were of stress. And so taking classes, learning about how stress works. Of course, most of us know there's good stress and bad stress, but it's all stress. And so being aware of the warning signs of, okay, maybe my shoulders are stuck in my ears. That's what I used to say. And sometimes it still happens, but just taking a breath, especially in a stressful situation, taking a breath because we need oxygen, and saying, okay, we don't have to tackle it all, but what can we do? So what can I do right now? What's going to make the biggest impact in this situation right now? I think is huge. And then reminding myself, okay, I've worked through all the other hard things. I'm here now. It's going to get better. Just the other day, I had a, meltdown moment. I just was feeling, I was just in the feels. I don't know. I think it's hormone related. I don't know. Probably a lot to do with stress. We went through a hurricane. There's, been a lot of things happening in our lives in a short period of time. And I think it just kind of all caught up to me. And I love that my husband is at a place where he can now support me in those times so that I have that outlet, because we are each other's best friends. And I just had my little cry fest. It was okay. And I moved on, and today's a new day. And yeah, just being able to say, okay, it's okay to have those feelings, let them out, because that's a release. And I definitely have learned that that's what I need, so that it's just a little trickle instead of a complete, rush of emotions. And I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful to remind myself, like, yes, you've got this, you've worked through the hard things, you've got this too, let's keep going.
If I could, I would insert right now a clip of Holly Hunter sitting on the end of a bed crying in broadcast news every day, and then like being fierce. Like that was really
yeah.
I feel like that. You're very Holly Hunter in a way. So shifting gears, because there's so much more we want to talk about with you. I happen to know you're in graduate school right now, but so I'm conflicted about which one to talk about. But I want to talk a little bit more about your coaching business, because I know that's all like ongoing, and I know that you're very niche and specific. And I'm curious if you can tell us, what that specialty is and how you ended up, drilling into that.
Sure. So like I said earlier, I needed to find a career that I could do from home to support my family. I didn't need to, I really wanted to. I just am so passionate about coaching. And so I started small with my coaching practice. It's called Complete Life Coaching 365. And I coach everybody, but my primary focus is financial coaching. I am really passionate about helping people keep their hard-earned money and make it work for them. So that is a lot of what I do, is financial coaching. And then, yes, I'm in graduate school because I'm also pursuing my master's in interdisciplinary studies and management. So I'm hoping that eventually I'll land myself a career in management where I can do all the things like coach people, coach executives. I'm not quite sure the direction that I'm heading. Organizational coaching, something along those lines. So that's exciting, and something else on my plate that I'm dealing with. But I've gotten really good of making space for the really important things, because I know that I can't do it all. And for a while I thought that I could, and that is not reality. So just being okay with prioritizing just a few things at a time instead of all the things, because I want to be healthy and I want to be happy, and I don't want to be exhausted all the time or in the hamster wheel.
So when I think back with your coaching with Terry, and I knew you just a little bit as a client then, and then getting to know you as a coach. Tools, what is a favorite tool that you maybe learned from Terry, or is just what your go-to when you're coaching?
Oh, so I think my favorite tool is just being aware of my inner dialogue. I have a lot of, we all have self-talk. And so being able to accept what the voice in my head is saying, but know that it doesn't mean that it's accurate, if that makes sense. So I think that was a big help. I mean, we personified my inner voice, and that was really a helpful tool. And I just love that coaching session. It's one of the ones that sticks out to me the most. And just being able to say, okay, the inner voice, I called her Queenie, was saying this, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that that's true. And what else would Michelle say to that? So just really getting clear about shifting those thoughts.
And do you find that you are using that? Like, is that a tool then that you use with your clients now?
Yes, I do use that with my clients. I also, yeah, I mean, there's so many different avenues for coaching, but yeah, I do use that with my clients, but I still use it for myself a
It
lot.
sounds also like it'd be good in parenting with, a spouse, like with all of all the relationships. I know that at some point I had a client who had a lot, like, I mean, we all do. I ruminate the most, but so it's like funny. I haven't done this myself, but I did it with a client, and it was we ended up just laughing. I was like, okay, all the negative thoughts that was keeping them from moving forward on this
Right.
big idea, a project they wanted to do, and some outreach they needed to do, that was part of that. And I was like, what's getting in the way? So because week after week they would put that on, they're sort of saying they were going to do it.
Right.
And so I said, okay, just start writing down all the thoughts, without any criticism or editing, just write them each down.
Yeah.
And then set them up as an email and
Yeah.
email yourself that thought. And by like the third day, they were laughing hysterically because they were like, yeah, I would never let anybody send me this email,
Exactly.
Like we're often talking to each other in a way we would never let somebody talk to our best friend or our twin,
right.
if we had a twin, and it becomes really clear when you take it out of yourself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the logical side of us is like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Why is this ruling my day? Why is this ruling my thoughts? And yeah, so I think the acceptance piece of, okay, thanks. Yeah, you said that, Queenie. All right, let's put that in a box. We'll we either come back to that or we'll just let it we'll just let it go.
It's the opposite of like the stage persona, right? It's like
right, exactly. Yeah.
Opposite of Sasha Fierce. Yeah.
Another thing too that Katie and I were talking about, and I mean, I think that you've probably answered this, but do you have an inflection point in your life? I mean, is it defined by, Matt's injury and how your life changed so much there, or is there something else that you kind of look at?
Oh, I think that was definitely a defining moment of, how I was going to operate. I think it's just been a process. I don't know. I mean, that was a big defining moment of who we have become, but it is not who I don't identify solely as a caregiver. So for a long period of time, that's all I identified as, but it didn't sit well with me because I didn't want that to be my defining, my ID, I wanted something more. And not that caregiving isn't, it is a beautiful thing. And it's, I mean, you're putting your trust in somebody else to make sure that you're okay. Like that's a huge gift to give somebody and vice versa. And so, but I wanted more. I am a self-starter. I want to be a provider for my family. And because I'm thankful for the VA, I'm on the caregiver program, and that's been so helpful financially, but that's not always going to be there. And I don't know what my husband's health is going to be in 10 or 15 years. And so I want to get ourselves financially secure so that I can take all of the things that I've learned through this journey and help myself be independent should that be the case. God forbid. I mean, unfortunately I have a lot of caregiver friends who have lost their spouses for various health reasons, and that's scary. And so setting ourselves up for good space and also role modeling for our son of, okay, these are the priorities that we need to have, and this is how we're going to do it. And so he's very much a big part of our lives. We're very transparent with him. So I think that's not a bad thing personally, to help him grow and become the best version of himself. So
how do you have fun?
How do I have fun?
I know right now with a roof missing off your barn and other things, it's probably there's not tons of free time, but in the good times, how do you have fun?
Another big takeaway that I had from coaching is balance. So creating balance in life. And when, in the beginning, I could only focus on work, and because I love work, I love all the aspects of work. I like being productive. So that energizes me. I know for a lot of people that can be draining, but that's my energy gainer. And so I really have worked hard on creating life balance and incorporating fun. And fun looks different for everybody. So I like to garden. I love to camp. I love to motorcycle ride. I was doing woodworking for a while. I was crafting, you name it. I have a lot of hobbies, and I don't do them all. Actually, I haven't crafted in like 3 years, but well, that's not true. But I have not crafted as often as I was. So it's a little snippets of this creating fun this week. And then I also make it a priority. So I will schedule it in my calendar. It sounds crazy to say that out loud, but I do a lot of scheduling because I really want to live an intentional life, and the things that are important to me, I want to make time for.
Oh, I schedule everything too. If I don't, I'll sit at this computer all day. So yeah,
Right. Well, that is a big issue. So with graduate school and volunteer work, and we were doing puppy raising for Southeastern guide dogs for a while, which was a big chunk of time. My puppy's in college, by the way. So, that was, but just, scheduling all the different tasks for life.
Scheduling
I think
is fun.
for some, yes. For people like us, yes. But yeah, I mean, really, in order to have fun, I have to get the chores, as I call them, out of the way, because I can get into the weeds of like, oh, this needs to be done, this needs to be done, and it all needs to be done, just not today.
Well, you're a very, I know that you sort of, in what you're just saying, and also what I know is that you're a very efficient person and I know you to be very clean about your time. So I'm curious to know, just because I nerd out on these things, are there any apps or tools, or is it just like a yellow pad with boxes that you write? Like, what's some of your tricks?
Okay, so I use my Google Calendar for just about everything. And it actually was a tool that we started to use for reminders for my husband. And so we were scheduling together his day, his, med management reminders, one, to keep me on track and also to help him become independent. And so that kind of just spilled over into my life. And so it's interesting, reflecting back on how I came to be this. I mean, I've always been organized. It's just, I think, part of who I am. But yeah, I swear by my calendar. I do my grocery shopping through an app because I don't want to dedicate the time to grocery shop, and I'm not that picky. So let somebody else earn some money to do that for me. So it's just various things like delegating, that's the word, delegating. So I delegate what I can, and then make time for the things that mean the most to me.
So the best thing that I've learned from Michelle in working with her, and I use this, I caught myself the other day, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I've learned from you.
Yes, that is one of my things that I say all the time. If there's an easier way to do things, and also with that comes, it's okay if it doesn't get done today. Like, I used to just stress out about when I still battle with that because I am who I am, but just reminding myself, like, it's okay, it's going to get done eventually. And if it doesn't get done, then it didn't need to be done. Like, it's somebody else's problem.
So related, because I always love work smarter, not harder. That's something we bonded ourselves together. My soul saw yours. What is there any advice you've received that you think of like best piece of advice you've been given, or advice you think that you want to give others?
So related to my caregiving journey, it was from my mom. This makes me tear up because part of my education journey was, I was just kind of at my wit's end, ready to throw in the towel when things were at its worst. And my mom came to me and said, you really need to just do some soul searching and figure out like how you can help your husband, because this is for better, for worse. And so that little tidbit of advice really was a catalyst to becoming the best version of myself as a wife and as a caregiver. And education, learn about what you're dealing with, and that goes for anything. You know, it's learning a new skill. I know I jumped into helping one-to-one with the website. I didn't know how to build a website. I mean, really, I've learned like so much through different YouTube videos. I mean, there's YouTube videos for everything. So educate, educate, educate. And as an educator, I'm a lifelong learner. So I think it's just, that's probably the biggest piece of advice that I've been given that really has been a game changer. So if there's not something if I don't know something, I'm not afraid to ask for help or go find it myself.
I love that.
Yeah.
So I think one of my big questions now is like, what's the big dream? Like, what's your next something that you're looking forward to doing, or just it's still there in the dream stages?
So you're asking really good questions. So I struggle with dreaming because I think through this whole process, I'm a realist. I've really defined that I'm a realist. And so it's hard for me to dream. I do have dreams and I do have things that could be possible, but I try not to get things set in stone, because I had that dream when we were 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, that we were going to be the cop and the teacher, and we were going to have these kids and all these things. And it didn't happen like that. And so I think I'm just going through trying to be in the moment and not live too far in the future. So how do I answer that? I think right now my dream is to be done with graduate school, and I'm just starting. So I've got that in my next, 2-year plan. And then, we've got things on our farm that we want to do and places we want to travel, and, just watching our son grow up. He's, like I said, he's 13, and gosh, he's going to graduate high school before I know it. And so just, really just being in the moment, and just enjoying our time that we have together, I think has been my focus. So, because like I said, I can get too far in the future and then it derails me. So
I never understand when people say, "What's your 5-year plan?" That just seems, I mean, if the pandemic revealed anything,
right.
futility of that question. I know, with all due respect to anybody who asked that question, to me,
Yeah.
I can never look that far out. I mean, even if you think about it, you then have to kind of back it up to like 6 months from now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's self-preservation for me too. Because it's easy. It's not that I can't dream. It's just that it seems almost like it's not where my best time is spent. If that makes any sense. I don't know.
Yeah. So what's one place you want to travel? Are there any places?
Europe.
Europe.
I want to go. I went to Ireland a few years ago and I loved it. And I just see us travel. Like I want to fly over somewhere to Europe and stay there for a month and just go to different places.
I can just see you guys on motorcycles, motorcycling.
That would be fun. That could be fun. Yes.
With Cohen and riding side saddle or whatever you call
Right.
it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. There's just so many different places. I mean, my husband and I do talk about going, different here and there. And I don't know.
Cool.
So many possibilities.
And then, is there anything, interesting ahead in your business that you're thinking about? Because I know sometimes you run workshops, or do you have anything like that coming up?
I do. I'm going to be hosting a workshop with a gal that lives local. She owns an organic flower farm here. And so we just happened to cross paths, and we're talking about law of attraction. And then it spiraled into, well, I teach this vision board workshop, and let's make it happen. So that's coming up in January. So that's that is something that's relatively close. It'll be here before we know it. So that's next on my agenda, and then continuing with school.
Wonderful. Well, you'll have to send us the details for your workshop.
I would love to. Yes.
Thank you so much, first of all,
Yes.
for everything that you've done for one-to-one, because you've contributed so much. And website, that's just one piece of it, and that's been a huge piece. So thank you from all of us for that, but thanks for being a good friend
Yes.
and work wife as well. And thanks for
And
joining.
source of inspiration for sure.
Well, thank you. It's been such an honor to have been chosen for this, and just to be a part of an organization that gives literally everything they have. I mean, when I'm just, people don't understand what one-to-one offers, and this tiny little budget that we operate on, and the amount of people that really have their hands in the giving and play such an instrumental part in changing lives around the world. And that's incredible to be a part of such an organization with a far reach.
Yeah, well, it's because of you are a huge part of it, and so is Kristen.
We are all equally.
About the two of you, I say they leave it all on the dance floor. Truly, yeah. I also want to say how grateful I am that you've come into my life, and that you are in this world and doing incredible things everywhere you go. And just, you really are such a source of inspiration and celebration. So that's really also what this is about. This is about celebrating you all month. You'll be so sick of us.
No, I'm never sick of you. No, I'm so grateful for this, and just for my ability to stay a part of one-to-one, even though I'm not active on the leadership team currently. I know I always have a place.
You have our ways of pulling you back in.
I know. I just was speaking with Dawn the other day. I know. Yeah. And so I just also being a part of this organization with the understanding of my unique situation and support. I mean, that's been huge. So it really is a blessing.
Well, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for allowing us to honor you. Caregiver Month is also in November, and that was wanting to connect that a little bit, but being able to honor you has been a pleasure. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you.
All right, and so for Katie and Michelle and myself, we'll see you soon.
Bye.